And you're not going to be a king. Hear it, accept it, imbibe it, boy. You are never going to be king. No matter what she calls you in bed. It's not going to happen. Fuck that shit. Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits, on this joyous occasion of the return of the Princess Royal. Our darling Annie returned to work today for the first time since her head injuries and her hospital stay 3 weeks thence, and this is the first step in a phased return to public duty. Isn't it reassuring and an absolute tonic to see our beloved princess back in action? And she's not bothered at all by what's befallen her. She is there to roll up her sleeves and get on with the job, and she was visiting one of her treasured charities, the RDA, who are the Riding for the Disabled Association, which is hosting its national championships as they celebrate their 55th anniversary as well at the same time. And I adored the hat and the gloves in that electric violet shade of blue. Absolutely divine. Paired with the primary coloured scarf, a green jacket. I thought it was grey, but it's actually green, and then her signature rubious lips with that mischievous pout. Absolutely gorgeous, heavenly. And she was joining supporters in the arena, and Her Royal Highness gave out awards, and she met with the winners. And the chief executive of the charity said that, as our president, the princess holds a very special place in the hearts of the entire RDA community and has helped us celebrate many significant milestones and provided invaluable support for over 5 decades. And there are some out there who might want to note how royalty functions, one half of whom are actually born into royalty and should know better. But do you notice that royalty give out awards? They don't line up to receive them or pay to receive them, or do favours to receive them. They give out awards and celebrate the service of others. It's intrinsic, and that still goes on after 5 decades, as the chief executive of the National Disabled Riding Charity, whatever it is, says, Anne. After over 5 decades, not 5 minutes, lovies, not after 5 minutes. A brief hello to Nancy, who I mentioned, Nano, in the previous broadcast, who's from the States but has come to the Kingdom, and I was worried about the weather for your visit to Inverness. Well, she's let us know, my dears, our basketeer, she's let us know, my dear River, I am here. So neat to get called out from you. I'm in Inverness, and it's been very chilly and rainy since I arrived, as I thought it might be, and I love it, she says, I love it. It's my kind of weather. Well, you must be a gal after my own heart, my dear, because you know that I'm partial to a bit of rain and damp as well, and grey skies, but I hope you get a bit of sunshine. You say, I don't think the UK could possibly disappoint me no matter the weather. I was in actual tears when our plane landed yesterday, which might have been partially from lack of sleep, but mostly out of pure joy. Well, that's happened to me before. I remember the first time I flew over the Sydney Opera House after a very long-haul flight, and a stay over in Japan, I think it was, when I finally arrived after the 3rd connecting flight, and you just see that famous landmark of the Opera House. Just gorgeous. And I also get emotional when I fly over Buckingham Palace as well, coming into London. Flying into Heathrow or Gatwick, I'm afraid, is not the prettiest experience in the world, but it depends which direction you take. I digress. We went on a Loch Ness boat tour and Urquhart Castle today. Tomorrow is Leakey's bookstore, Craignadoon, Standing Stones and Clara Cairn. So much to see, so much to do. Hopefully the delicious men in kilts still play Highland games in stormy weather. Well, I'm jolly pleased to hear that you're off to a good start here in the Kingdom, my dear, and I hope everything lives up to your dreams and fantasies, and I'm sure you will seek them out and find them. You've got a nice schedule. But as for the ESPY Awards last night, well, I said that the Harkles are going to be eclipsed by Prince William, who is playing polo today and will outshine them, of course, as he does naturally. But actually it wasn't William that managed to eclipse them. It was President Biden. They were expecting blanket coverage over every single tabloid in the kingdom. They thought they were going to dominate everything with their award. But they were not. It was President Biden coming out with all sorts of nonsense and getting Zelensky confused for Putin on the world stage. I am really sorry to those of you of all stripes in the States, but they're as embarrassing as all of our world leaders can be. I'm sorry, but that is beyond a faux pas. I mean, that is the faux pas to end all faux pas. I mean, people try and excuse it by saying a slip of the tongue. A slip of the tongue? To confuse him for Putin, I ask you. And to describe his deputy as Deputy President Trump. And people are going to insist that he is of mind that is strong enough to lead the Western world through these murky, choppy waters. Well, each to their own. Each to their own. ESPY coverage for the Harkles was actually relegated to the minor columns of the press. It was an afterthought. It was as an afterthought. And you can just imagine the Duchess of Sussex's reaction to it, can't you? Who's this old white man on the stage trying to upstage me, getting all the headlines? Who this old white man think he is? He's got an unconscious bias, Harry, I'm telling you. He's racist. Trying to upstage me. It's his unconscious bias. I'm a proud, confident woman of colour. And I've got Serena Williams here to back me up. Serena will back me up. Sisters stay together. We got sister space, and sisters are doing it for ourselves. And my husband is father to 2 proud, confident children of colour. And he is the husband of the great Adamazi. I am the great Adamazi, Princess of Nigeria, and the justified ages of Mumu. So watch it, because your white privilege stands in judgment. And you stare at my family and my friends and at me through the white gaze. It's the white gaze. Keep it away from me. I simply won't have it. Next time we have an ESPYs, can we please have no whites in the audience? I want blacks only. Other people of colour, and members of the letters community, I suppose. But it helps if they're of colour. That's all I want, because it's the white gaze, and the white gaze is warped. Oh, she's spinning blood at this. She wanted the attention, didn't she? Well, Spinderella cut it up one time. My dear. She was in robe, not as beautifully and as dazzlingly as me, my darling, with my sorceress sleeves. No, we all know about her. Wizard sleeve, my dear, we know what's up there, or rather we don't know and don't want to know. That's Harry's business, nobody else's, so they say. But she was in robe, she was encased in a halter-neck gown. I'm not quite sure who it was by. Some are saying it was custom Oscar de la Renta, some are saying that it was oustide. So I don't know, but whatever it wasn't actually that bad. Simple enough. Glitzy earrings that go for $300,000 or $400,000, by the way. Emerald cut diamonds. Diamond studs by Lorraine Schwartz. And this is the funny thing. I hear tell that she was both styled by Jamie Mizrahi and made up by Daniel Martin, who follows her around, doesn't he, like a familiar, like Sonic and Tails follows her around everywhere. Can I please ask, why is a glam squad necessary? Why does she need the full squad? Why does it take a village? It takes a whole village for this girl to glam up to that. You can go down to my local fancy dress shop and ask for their olive oil outfit, and they'll truss you up and give you a centre parting, and you can waddle in looking exactly as you do now, my dear. Because that's all she's done. That's all they've done to her. Slick back the hair, centre parting, olive oil, Wallace Simpson, the usual references, and she's stepped into a white frock, and they put a bit of bronzer, more bronzer, and a bit of highlight to the shoulders to give them that little gloss. Seems entirely unnecessary to me. But Serena introduced them, their enabler. Serena introduced them, of course. And she said, she was rather sarcastic. She said, I don't want to be overshadowed by the accusation that you guys are taking up too much oxygen, which is, I thought, although she was defending the Harkles and sort of making a mockery of the likes of you and I, who might disparage them, I thought that she might actually be making some sort of allusion to George Floyd and the fact, I can't breathe, get off of me. I thought she might have been trying to draw a connection there, which is exactly what Meg was doing when she accused the royal family of racism, because she was piggybacking on that movement, which, as you might remember, I have no faith in anyway, celebrating the life of a thug who died an unfortunate death as if he is Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King. Not on my watch, darling, not on my Nelly. I don't drink that Kool-Aid, lover. My black heroes are the likes of those gentlemen, not of some random thug. Anyway, well, actually, the accusation that you speak of, Serena Williams, came from the mother of Pat Tillman, as we discussed in the previous broadcast. The mother of Pat Tillman, who is the namesake of the awards that you clutch. And I will say it was a very emotional ceremony and a very emotional portion and a segment. There were lots of tears. It was difficult not to be moved. And I actually have got to tell you that I think the speech that he gave worked in his favour because, as we know, he was born angry, as we've been told by Lady Glenconner, via Barbara Barnes, his own nanny. He was born angry. He came out angry. Can you imagine? I'm not going to paint the picture graphically, but he actually came out boxing. This pusillanimous prince. He came out boxing. I know, it's an image that I am wont to shroud in mystery, but it needs conjuring because it illustrates the portrait of the man's psyche. Runs through his veins. It even lets him off the hook a bit because that's how he came out baked and how he came out cooked. And babies do come out cooked, in many ways. We all do. I saw aspects of my own siblings' personality from the moment that they were born that I commented on at the time and proved to be true. And later on, with young little babies in our family, I could see their personalities within hours. But the criticism that he had taken actually gave him an excuse to get into his stride, do you see? Being defensive. Boxing back, if you will. It's his raison d'etre. It gets him going. And it gives a bit of juice and a bit of fire to an otherwise, no doubt, dull speech. So I think it actually behooved him. Although I did notice that the crowd, you could hear them whooping and hollering. It looked overdubbed to me with cheers. I think it was, no doubt, because nobody was making much movement with their mouths and screaming away, but you could hear it. I think that was certainly overdubbed. And of course, Meghan, with that rictus grin, all she had to do was sit there, and yes, the odd smile you can understand, but the cutie pie rictus grin thing, she cannot get out of that mode. The camera's on you, Daddy Markle, like me, I'm an expert on how to be lit. Let me find the limelight and the spotlight. She's doing a Annie audition all over again for Broadway. Get out of the way, orphans. Get out of the way. That's going to become a trademark of this channel, I think, that line, because hundreds of you really enjoyed my little impression on the previous broadcast. Get out of the way, orphans. Get out of the way. It sums her up, doesn't it, my dears? It just sums her up. And she had the temerity. No, she didn't. He had the temerity. I do get a little bit confused with my own notes sometimes, my dear, my list of bullet points. I think, what on earth was I thinking when I wrote that? But Harry had the temerity to name-check Mary Tillman, who had criticised him. And it seems that he's certainly in the good books with Pat Tillman's widow, Marie. She was very supportive and, clapped him and had tears in her eyes, and it was very emotional. But as for Mary Tillman, she wasn't pleased about it. He had the gall to name-check her in his speech, to try and weasel his way into her good books. Well, she didn't want you there, boy. She didn't want you there, whether right or wrong. She didn't want you there. And I'm quite sure that his PR since then have been scrambling around, no doubt charming, putting on the charm and trying to woo their way into the mother's affections behind the scenes. Don't be surprised if she comes forward in a few days and says, I had a change of heart, or my words were taken the wrong way. But I don't know Mary Tillman, and I can't speak on her behalf. But she was horrified that he was going to be there. But instead of this bumbling Hugh Grant impersonation that we get from Harry, oh, I'm so modest, and all of this. And instead of him saying, I stand here not as Prince Harry, Pat Tillman Award recipient, but as a voice, which he did very convincingly. Whatever you think of him, he did it extremely convincingly, because he even convinces himself that he believes it's true. Instead of that, why not quit this vulgar trolley dash spree of vulgarity and speak for yourself, boy. Speak for yourself, not for the masses, because unlike your father and your brother, you are not and are never going to be head of state for the UK, the US, or anywhere else in the world. And you're not going to be a king. Hear it, accept it, imbibe it, boy. You are never going to be king. No matter what she calls you in bed. It's not going to happen. Fuck that shit. When you watched The Lion King in the cinema with Brother Willie, and he was looking at his fate as Simba was being held in arms, and he thought, that's me, King of the Jungle. They had all the characters. But you cried, didn't you, Harry, because you realised I don't even get a character in The Lion King. I can't remember if Simba had a brother, baby brother. I don't think so. But even if he did, I can't remember his name. No, there's only one Simba. There's only one king, and there's only one heir apparent. You're not the spare anymore, my dear. No longer required. A few people have told me in the comments over the years that when I get all exercised, my seat jumps about here and there, and it does, doesn't it? And I just thought I'd give it a wiggle there, because someone was asking me if my chair is a green screen. It's not the first time somebody's asked me. No, it's a real chair. I've stuck brooches in it before. I'm causing an earthquake. I've stuck brooches on it before and draped things all over it as well. Their Majesties have been in Wales celebrating 25 years of the devolved Welsh Parliament, and they met with the First Minister of Wales at an event including poetry readings and choirs, and the King delivered a speech, partially in Welsh, and he met with cancer campaigners and other people who are living with cancer. And the Queen wore Anna Valentine in a delicate shade of pink that was quite luscious. And the King spoke of his deepening respect and affection for this ancient land, and referenced Prince William's visit to Anglesey this week, and William's own relationship to this special land, as he put it. His Majesty joined celebrations to mark the 50th anniversary of Sony UK, the technology centre that they have, because he opened the first site in Bridgend back in 1976, so he's got a long relationship with Sony, who have created thousands of jobs and opportunities for local communities over the years. And the King was tasked with packing up the 50 millionth Raspberry Pi, which is a computer that empowers young people to learn coding and explore technology through hands-on projects. It was a really, really lovely occasion, so much goodwill from the people of Wales. One thing I did not appreciate was the young chap in the crowd asking the King how old he was. I think someone else did that a few months ago, didn't it? I'm afraid I don't find it cute or amusing or even particularly excusable. I find it rude. One can only assume that the parents are to blame, but I don't want to cast aspersions. It's rude to ask anybody, especially an elder, not that I consider King Charles old, but somebody drifting from the autumn to the winter of life. It's rude. Anybody at all, but especially a king. Can you imagine Queen Victoria, how old are you, love? How old are you? Go on, we were trying to have a guess. Can you imagine in Queen Vicky's day? Or even the late Queen Liz? I do not think so. This kind of behaviour is disappointing. Over 115,000 postboxes across the kingdom have recorded the succession of monarchs, starting with the first box that bore the cipher of Queen Victoria. Today, in Great Cambourne, Royal Mail unveiled the King's cipher on the first postbox and has begun applying it to the doors of their vehicles. The cipher is going to appear on new or replacement postboxes as well as Royal Mail vehicles, but existing postboxes will be kept as they are, as is tradition, retaining the cipher from the period in which they were installed. Queen Camilla has been mixing with the ball boys and the ball girls at Wimbledon, along with other members of the royal family. The Tyndalls, for example, were there. A sage green picture of love in a rare moment of sobriety. I saw the Middletons trotting along, always smart, always elegant. And I saw the Queen's sister, Annabel Elliot. They looked like they were having a lot of fun, didn't they? Fun times for the siblings. And Peter and Harriet made an appearance. The Mapoli-Motzis were there. The Windsors were there. And by the way, the brooch that the Queen was wearing was part of that Lucky Animals collection by Van Cleef & Arpels that she's got a few of. We've seen her with other ones before. This time she wore the little doggy, and isn't it a delight? And don't shoot the messenger, because this might not be true at all, but I have heard some whispers that Catherine might make an appearance at Wimbledon over the weekend. We can only keep our fingers crossed and hope, can't we, my dear? But as for her husband, the devoted Prince of Wales, he was attending a special event to mark the first year of Homewards, of which we're all so proud, aren't we? Because between that and Earthshot and all his other things going on, he is building an incredible legacy, one that is going to stand the test of time, of decades. And this is the Royal Foundation's 5-year programme that's working to demonstrate together that it's possible to end homelessness. Working with 6 flagship locations across the kingdom, Homewards is showcasing what can be achieved through a collective effort. And the Prince delivered a short speech of thanks, and he apologised for being a little bit hoarse and husky. Well, we don't mind, do we, my dears? But he was actually husky because he'd been cheering at the football. That was his excuse. We saw those photographs of him going for it. Well, it made him a bit soft of voice, and he also spent time with representatives from each of the 6 Homewards locations and had a fireside chat with advocates focusing on the importance of people with lived experience, previously known as experience, informing new solutions to homelessness. He's always on it, isn't he, my dears? But then so are you. You always tell me what's what, so please do remember to leave me a lovely juicy comment in the comments below, and I look forward to reading them. My tip jar, if you enjoyed this segment, is in the description box, and I thank you most sincerely, and I will see you next time, my dears. Ta-ra and toodle pip!